Best Big Ten candidates, Destinations West. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis because of your contribution. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media. We figure that if you enjoy the content, others will as well. And hit that like button. Even if you don't agree with me, if you enjoy the conversation, please hit the like button. Let's get down to it. The Big Ten has added USC and UCLA. They are looking west. They are in negotiations with Notre Dame right now, and that is the prime candidate. But they need a pairing with Notre Dame, or if they get turned down by the Irish once again, then it's possibly two members to the Big Ten to round it up to 18, maybe 20 and beyond. But we will take this step in looking at the Pac-12 candidates. Let's start with the best football brand by far. It's Oregon. The Ducks beat the Buckeyes last season in Columbus 35-28, have appeared in two BCS national championship games. Of course, in 2010 under Chip Kelly, 2014 under Mark Helfrich. They are a top name brand with Nike money and backing and support. Their jerseys, their unis have become legendary across college football and brought in a lot of fringe fans. The Oregon brand is number one on the football field. They have been the most dominant and most consistent team in the Pac-12 for the past, well, if you're going 30 to 40 years, they've certainly had a winning tradition during that time that was accelerated by Chip Kelly in going 46-7 during his tenure in 4 years, 33-3 in the Pac-12, and again, the most consistent winner in the Pac-12. And based on the metrics we have from our buddy Tony Altimore, the consultant and strategist, Oregon has the seventh largest fan base in all of college football at over 5.5 million. Let's look at Washington on the football field. Up and down Huskies for decades and decades, but under Don James, a perennial Pac-12 contender, champion, and Rose Bowl team, won a national championship split with Miami in 1991. 7 top 10 finishes since the late 70s through the early 90s under Don James. They had a dip under Keith Gilbertson and Ty Willingham. Chris Peterson led them back. And, of course, they had 3 New Year's 6 bowl appearances here in the past few years, the Rose, the Peach, and the Fiesta against Ohio State, Penn State in that college football playoff appearance against Alabama in 2016. Washington has won 92 games, lost 57 since 2010 with 4 top 25 finishes since 2013. Now let's look at Utah out of Salt Lake City and Kyle Whittingham and one of the most consistent programs finally reaching the zenith of the Pac-12 with a championship in the conference for the first time after championship game appearances in 2018 and in 2019, losing to Oregon and Washington. Whittingham gets the Utes to the Rose Bowl. This program is 96-53 since the year 2000 with 9 top 25 finishes. They, of course, emerged as a group of 5 power under Urban Meyer and then Whittingham in the 2000s, moving to the Pac-12 in 2012, and of course, have been a contender ever since reaching the Rose Bowl against Ohio State this past season. Utah on the field, one of the top 15 programs in all of college football. Now let's go to Colorado. Really, this has been a down program for much of its history. Its pinnacle under Bill McCartney in the late 80s and early 90s. The last conference championship for Colorado way back in 2001. They split a national championship in 1990. Their only top 25 appearance since 2003 was in 2016 when they won a division championship. They are 57-90 is Colorado since 2010. It's all right. Let's move it on to Stanford. Rough going under David Shaw here in the past 3 seasons at 11-19, but Stanford, of course, had a run in the Pac-12, unlike many other than Oregon and USC under Jim Harbaugh, and then under David Shaw, of course, they had quite the run. Despite the rough ride the last 3 seasons, they're still 105-46 since 2010, with 7 top 25 finishes since 2009, and 4 top 10 finishes overall. But Stanford's success, of course, can't be taken for granted. They're pretty lousy right now, and they were lousy most of the 90s and 2000s. They had a stretch in which they appeared in the top 25 just once in 17 seasons. Stanford football, up and down, could be good, but again, their focus, academics, of course. Now let's move it on to Cal in that same television market, the Cal football program last won 10 games in 2006. They basically win 6 or 7 games most seasons, go to low-tier bowl games if they get to bowl games, and actually have had a losing season in 8 of its last 11 seasons at Cal Berkeley. Last reached a major bowl game, the 1959 Rose Bowl for Cal. Ironically, Cal produces a ton of NFL players and quality star NFL players. Look at the list of Cal NFL alumni. It's mighty impressive, both in terms of quantity and quality. Now let's look at the most recent television ratings. And of course, this is going to be tied to a program's success that particular season and what networks carried their games. So this shouldn't be overblown in regards to being all-encompassing. We're just looking at one season, the 2021 season, and how these various candidates fared in regards to bringing eyeballs to the television sets and through digital media as well. And Oregon by far was the best. Oregon attracted over 33 million viewers for all its games. Of course, that was highlighted by the trip to Columbus on Fox with 7.7 million viewers against Ohio State. They also had nice showings in their games against UCLA and Colorado and Stanford, and then highlighted by the late season showdown against Utah when Oregon was still in playoff contention at that point, in which that game between the Utes and the Ducks drew almost 5 million viewers. The next most watched team in 2021 out of these Pac-12 Big Ten contenders was the Washington Huskies, despite a 4-8 season. Well, they played an early season game on ABC primetime against Michigan that drew almost 5 million viewers out of the 12.3 for the entire season. Washington also eclipsed the 1 million mark several times, most notably against Oregon. That game against the Ducks was fairly early in the season for Washington as well. Next up would be Colorado with a slim edge in TV viewing this past season over Stanford. Colorado had a big date in week 2 against Texas A&M. You got to think that the Aggies drew most of those eyeballs. Plus, in addition to that, it was a close game down to the final drive of the game. 4.5 million views against Texas A&M. Colorado eclipsed 1 million views on 3 other occasions with a total of almost 10 million views for the season. Stanford at 9.7, and the Stanford big matchups were, again, of course, against Oregon and against Notre Dame, the only 2 games of the season which Stanford eclipsed 2 million viewers for one game, but they still totaled at 9.7, way above. Look at the figures for Cal football this past season. Basically, they were relegated to the Pac-12 network, which roughly draws in 50 to 100,000 views per game. Minuscule. Cal eclipsed 250,000 only 3 times, and the top 2 were against UCLA and USC at only 0.39, which is 390,000 views, and that doesn't come anywhere close. So they only drew 2 million people, which was less for the entire season than any of these teams drew in their biggest games, and for most of those teams, multiple games. And just to put this entire framework into context, the Ohio State-Michigan game drew almost 16 million people. All of these teams, excluding Oregon, were eclipsed by that one game for their entire schedule, the 12-game season. We didn't include the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon-Utah, so we could make the comparison equitable. But then also keep in mind that Oregon drew 33 million, and almost 8 million of those were the Ohio State game. But also keep in mind that this is just 2021. I'm sure Stanford drew much better numbers. I know that they did in the early 2010s when they were a top-notch program. Washington, in better seasons, of course, would draw better. They're coming off a 4-win season. Cal's been better. And if they get the more attractive matchups against UCLA and USC on ABC or Fox, ESPN, then they're going to draw as well. So this is just one season, but it gives you an idea of who watches what teams from the Pac-12. Now let's look at some alumni and academic-based numbers here. First, the endowments. And you can see my sources down in the description section. $38 billion for Stanford. So we think the football numbers are big for some of these schools. They pale in comparison to the academic endowments. Stanford's is incredible. I was looking at some figures trying to get a read on alumni base. Cal Berkeley has a huge alumni base. I saw one listing at number 1 in the country at 486,000 alumni. I saw another listing at number 7. And coincidentally, the Big Ten floods the alumni top 10 to 15 with the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Indiana as well. Now, looking at the quality of the schools, it's not going to surprise you that Stanford is number 1 within these contenders. At number 6 in the nation, they have 6,300 in regards to their enrollment. Cal is near the top 20 at number 22, followed by a distant number 3 in Washington at number 62. Oregon, Utah, and Colorado are pretty much in step at 73, 74, and 75 right there in a row in regards to academic rankings nationally. And then we also wanted to look at TV markets. So check out the TV market. So this is more about the potential. We looked at the actual eyeballs and the ratings from 2021, but the potential of drawing in the television market. And of course, the Big Ten was lured in partially by the Los Angeles TV market at number 2 in America to New York City. So we saw how many people watched these particular games involving the Pac-12 teams in 2021. But what about the market size, which speaks more to the potential? So if Stanford's good, more people in San Francisco, San Jose, a large market, are going to watch Stanford football than when they go 3-9 like they did in 2021. So looking at the potential, the market size, the major Oregon market is Portland, the 21st ranked market in the country. Then we also put that up against the fan base, which our buddy Tony Altimore has ranked as the number 7 fan base in all of college athletics. Washington, so that's Seattle, Tacoma being the main Washington Huskies market. Of course, they're focused on the NFL first and foremost by far, is number 12. And the Huskies have the 25th largest fan base in America at 2.46 million. Utah, Salt Lake City, of course, being the primary market at number 30. Utah apparently has the 45th largest fan base at 1.09 million. Colorado, Denver, of course, another NFL market, though. You got to take that into consideration. Watching the Broncos, first and foremost, by far, has less than 1 million in regards to Colorado-based football fans. That's the 50th highest ranking in all of college athletics. Then we've got the San Francisco, San Jose market that shares both Stanford and Cal, San Jose State to a much lesser degree. Add it all up, and this is what you've got in regards to the attractiveness of these Pac-12 candidates. First and foremost, let's just state Notre Dame is the number 1 target, and Notre Dame should be the number 1 target for good reason. We've outlined that in the previous video. Check it out. Notre Dame should move to the Big Ten. In regards to these Pac-12 candidates, the best remaining one, if you take everything into consideration, it's a close call. If you're looking at just football, it's Oregon. Clearly, Oregon. If you take everything into consideration, I'm going Stanford, then Oregon, then Washington, followed by Utah and Colorado last. That's moving west. But if the Big Ten looks elsewhere, south and east, then they may come up with some other candidates. We will look at the ACC and other destinations right here at the Voice of College Football. Please lock it in, and we will see you next time.